What if one of the most sacred cities on Earth is hiding something no one is allowed to fully uncover? Beneath its streets, beneath its temples, beneath layers of stone and history, there are structures, tunnels, and objects that scientists were shocked to find, and still cannot fully explain. Some of them were discovered by accident. Others were sealed, buried, or quietly hidden from the public. So what is really under Jerusalem? And more importantly, why does it feel like certain things were never meant to be found? In this video, we're going beneath the surface, into places most people will never see, to uncover 7 secrets that could change what we think we know about history itself. You might think Jerusalem is just a holy city, tourists, prayers, ancient walls, but that's only what's visible. Because underneath, there's something else entirely. Jerusalem has existed continuously for over 5,000 years, and during that time, it has been destroyed and rebuilt 18 times. Each civilization didn't erase the previous one. They built on top of it. Babylonians over Judeans, Romans over Babylonians, Crusaders over Arabs, layer after layer, century after century. Today, beneath the modern city, there are nearly 40 meters of compressed history, 40 meters of stone, tunnels, sealed chambers, forgotten spaces. Archaeologists have documented more than 12 kilometers of underground passages, and that's only the part they were allowed to explore. Because under the streets, under mosques, under apartment buildings, there are structures whose purpose no one fully understands. Some are officially classified, some are politically off-limits, and some are studied in secret, at night, without permission, risking international consequences. Think about that for a second. Entire sections of one of the most studied cities on Earth that no one is allowed to fully investigate. Why? What could possibly be down there that makes people stop digging? And here's where it gets more unsettling. Some of the most important discoveries weren't found because people were looking for them. They were found by accident, ignored for decades, misidentified or hidden in plain sight, until suddenly someone realized what they were really looking at, and everything changed. Quietly, without headlines, without explanation. We're starting with one of those discoveries, something that sat right in front of experts for over 60 years, dismissed, overlooked, completely misunderstood, until 2025, when scientists finally saw what was really there. And what they uncovered suggests that Jerusalem may have been far more advanced, far more fortified, and far more mysterious than anyone ever imagined. Let's begin. For decades, experts walked right past it. Not once, not twice, but for over 60 years. They believed it was just part of the natural landscape, a simple slope, a harmless geological formation. Nothing unusual, nothing worth questioning. Until April 2025. That's when something changed. Geophysical scans revealed something hidden beneath the surface. Something massive, something no one expected. Buried underground was a man-made trench, 9 meters deep, 30 meters wide, stretching hundreds of meters along the eastern slope of the Ophel Hill. And suddenly, everything they thought they knew about ancient Jerusalem started to shift. Think about the scale for a second. 9 meters deep, that's the height of a 3-story building, completely carved into the earth. 30 meters wide, wider than the distance between 2 football goals. And this wasn't done with modern machines. No excavators, no steel tools, only bronze picks and human hands. Thousands of years ago, this structure dates back to around the 15th century BCE, long before Jerusalem became the city described in later history. At that time, it belonged to the Canaanites, and what they built was far more advanced than anyone had assumed. This trench wasn't random. It was part of a defensive system, a massive fortification designed to protect something important, something valuable, something worth defending at all costs. For comparison, the famous moat surrounding the Tower of London is only about 4.5 meters deep. This one, twice as deep, carved entirely by hand. And here's the part that unsettles researchers the most. For 60 years, this enormous, clearly artificial structure was mistaken for natural terrain. 60 years. How does something like that happen? What else is still being overlooked? Dr. Yael Landau-Talgum from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem stated in April 2025, This structure suggests that Jerusalem during the Middle Bronze Age was significantly larger and far more fortified than previously believed. In other words, the official timeline of the city's development may be wrong by centuries. But here's what they don't explain. If a structure this massive could remain hidden in plain sight for decades, what else is still buried beneath the city? Undiscovered, misidentified, ignored. Because this wasn't just a discovery, it was a warning. A reminder that even in one of the most studied places on Earth, we still don't fully understand what's beneath our feet. And this is only the beginning. Just a few kilometers away, beneath a busy neighborhood in East Jerusalem, there's a cave. A massive underground space that tourists walk through every day, taking photos, following the lights, and then leaving, without ever asking the one question that matters most. Where did all the stone go? And what was this place really used for? That's where we're going next. Just a few kilometers from that trench, beneath a crowded neighborhood in East Jerusalem, there's a cave. Tourists walk into it every day. They take photos, they follow the lights, and then they leave, without realizing they just walk through something much bigger than it appears. The place is known as Zedekiah's Cave, also called Solomon's Quarries. It stretches nearly 230 meters into the limestone beneath the city. At first glance, it looks almost ordinary, a vast underground hall, ceilings rising up to 15 meters high, rough limestone pillars fading into the darkness, side tunnels disappearing where the light can't reach. Soft electric lights guide the path. Metal railings keep visitors on track. Everything feels controlled, safe, explained. But step away from that path, and the illusion disappears. The light ends, and beyond that point, there is only darkness, and the sound of water dripping somewhere deep below. Geologists estimate that between 100,000 and 150,000 cubic meters of limestone were removed from this cave. Think about that number. Millions of tons of stone, gone, extracted over thousands of years. From the time of the first temple, all the way to the Ottoman period, and that stone didn't vanish. Blocks from this cave have been identified in the Western Wall, in the foundations of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, in structures built by the Crusaders. This cave helped build Jerusalem itself. But here's the question no one answers. If so much stone was taken from here, why does the cave still feel unfinished? Why do tunnels continue beyond the mapped sections? And how far does it really go beneath the modern city? Because the full size of this cave is still unknown. Parts of it extend under residential neighborhoods, areas no one is allowed to explore. And then there's something else, something that doesn't appear on tourist maps. Since the 19th century, this cave has been used for rituals. Freemason lodges in Jerusalem have held initiation ceremonies deep inside these chambers, in total darkness, lit only by candles. They believe they are standing in the very place where Hiram Abiff, the legendary master builder of Solomon's Temple, once worked. In 1868, American Freemason Robert Morris organized the first documented ceremony here, and the tradition never stopped. What exactly happens in those rituals is never publicly revealed. What they are looking for, or believe they have found, no one outside the lodge fully understands. So think about it. A cave that supplied the stone for the most sacred structures in Jerusalem. A space that stretches beneath the city, beyond what's been mapped. A place where millions of tons of rock were removed without a complete explanation. And a site still used for secret rituals in the dark. Tourists walk in, take pictures, and walk out without ever asking the question that matters. What was this place really built for? And if that feels strange, what comes next is even harder to explain. Because this time, it's not a cave. It's a document, a list, made from metal, describing something that shouldn't exist and might still be hidden somewhere beneath Jerusalem. In 1947, something was discovered in the Judean desert that didn't fit with anything else. The Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient manuscripts written on papyrus or leather, religious texts, historical writings, everything consistent with what archaeologists expected to find. Except one. One scroll was completely different. It wasn't written on papyrus. It wasn't written on leather. It was made of metal, pure copper, not ink on copper. The entire scroll itself was copper, about 1 millimeter thick, rolled into a cylinder. with text carefully engraved into the surface, and what it contained had nothing to do with religion. The copper scroll is a list, 64 entries, each one describing the location of buried treasures: gold, silver, sacred vessels, priestly garments, detailed, specific, practical, not symbolic, not poetic, a record. Estimates suggest the total weight of these treasures ranges between 45 and 170 tons of gold and silver. For the 1st century, that's not just wealth, that's the treasury of an entire state. In 1956, researcher John Allegro studied the scroll and was so shocked, he immediately organized an expedition into the Judean desert. He searched for the treasures. He found nothing. And here's the problem. The scroll gives locations, but not in a way we can understand anymore. The coordinates are tied to landmarks that no longer exist. North of the acacia, near the 3rd ledge of the rock. That's how the instructions read. But which acacia? Which rock? Over 2,000 years, the landscape has completely changed. What once made sense is now impossible to decode. Some researchers believe the scroll describes the hidden treasures of the Jerusalem temple, hidden before the city was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. If that's true, then somewhere beneath modern Jerusalem, those treasures may still exist, hidden, undiscovered, untouched, and yet access to further study is limited. The scroll is kept in the Jordan Archaeological Museum in Amman. Israel has requested access multiple times and has been denied. So here's the question no one answers directly. Why is a document listing treasures connected to Jerusalem stored in a country that never ruled it historically in that period? Skeptics have tried to dismiss the scroll. They say it's symbolic, a metaphor, a religious allegory. But that explanation falls apart for one simple reason: copper. No one creates a metaphor by engraving it into expensive metal, letter by letter. This was meant to last. This was meant to be used. In 2006, Professor Emil Puech analyzed the language of the scroll. He concluded that the dialect and writing style match administrative texts from the 1st century. Not a copy, not a story. An original document, which means this list was real. The locations were real, and the treasure may have been real too. So imagine this. Somewhere beneath the city, possibly within the very tunnels no one is allowed to fully explore, there could be gold from the 2nd temple, still hidden, still waiting. But forget the treasure for a moment, because what comes next is something far harder to explain. Not hidden underground, but submerged, at the bottom of a sacred lake, a structure so massive that even today, no one fully understands why it exists. In 2003, something unusual appeared on a sonar scan. At the bottom of the Sea of Galilee, a sacred lake tied to some of the most important stories in Christianity. Researchers detected an anomaly. At first, it didn't look like much, just a strange formation on the lake bed. Something irregular, something easy to dismiss. But when they looked closer, the shape became clear. A massive structure, conical in form, built from basalt stones, rough, heavy, deliberately arranged. The base measures around 70 meters in diameter. The height reaches about 10 meters, and the estimated weight is around 60,000 tons. To understand that scale, that's more than twice the total weight of all the stones used in Stonehenge. Sitting silently at the bottom of a lake. In 2013, an underwater expedition led by Yitzhak Paz from the Israel Antiquities Authority confirmed something unexpected. This was not natural. The stones were placed intentionally, some of them weighing between 200 and 400 kilograms each, stacked, arranged, forming a structure that should not be there by accident. And then comes the most unsettling part: the age. Estimates suggest the structure could date back between 2,000 and 5,000 years BCE, which means it may be older than the Egyptian pyramids. But here's what no one can explain. How did it end up underwater? Because at some point, this structure may not have been underwater at all. The water level of the Sea of Galilee has changed many times throughout history. It's possible that when this was built, it stood on dry land. So what was it? A fishing installation? A ritual site? A marker? No one fully understands. And the official explanations carefully avoid more controversial possibilities. There is one hypothesis, rarely discussed openly, that this structure could be the remains of an ancient settlement, submerged long before recorded history fully accounts for human activity in this region. A place that existed and then disappeared. 60,000 tons of stone, resting at the bottom of a sacred lake. For over 20 years since its discovery, with no definitive explanation. And here's what makes it even more unsettling. This isn't hidden deep underground. It's not sealed behind walls. It's right there, documented, recorded, visible with the right equipment. And still, no one fully understands what it is. If something this massive, this ancient, and this visible can remain unexplained for decades, then what about the things that aren't visible? Because the next location can't even be properly seen from the ground. You have to go higher, much higher, to understand what you're really looking at. And when you do, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. About 40 kilometers northeast of the Sea of Galilee, on the Golan Heights, there is another structure, but this one is different. You cannot understand it from the ground. You cannot grasp its shape by walking through it. To see it clearly, you have to rise above it. From the air, the full pattern reveals itself. Massive concentric stone circles, perfectly arranged, spreading outward in layers, built from rough basalt rock. The total diameter reaches around 150 meters. Local Arabs call it Rouge Melhiri, the Wheel of Spirits. In Israeli tradition, it is known as Gilgal Rephaim, the Circle of Giants. The structure is estimated to be around 5,000 years old. It consists of approximately 42,000 basalt stones, with a total weight of nearly 40,000 tons. The outer ring rises up to 8 meters high in some sections. At the center, there is a stone mound about 15 meters wide, possibly a burial chamber. And yet, there is something missing. There are no signs of a settlement nearby, no houses, no workshops, no water systems, nothing that would explain who built it or why they chose this location. Just the circles. But there is one detail that changes everything. During the spring and summer solstices, the sun rises exactly through an opening aligned with the northeast entrance of the structure. This is not random. The precision is deliberate, comparable to Newgrange in Ireland, or early phases of Stonehenge, which means whoever built this understood astronomical alignment. So who were they? Some theories point to the Rephaim, a race mentioned in ancient texts, often described as giants. Others suggest a Bronze Age Canaanite culture, but no conclusion has ever been confirmed. And then, access became restricted. Parts of the area around Gilgal Rephaim were closed by the Israeli military, officially to protect a natural reserve. The last major study was conducted in 2013 under Professor Michael Frykman, and the full results were never completely published. So ask yourself this: what exactly are they protecting? The landscape or something beneath it? Because by now, a pattern is starting to form. Massive structures, ancient engineering, precise design, and no clear explanation. But the next story is different. This time, it's not something forgotten. It's something that was found and then deliberately sealed. In a single night, in 1981, something happened beneath Jerusalem that almost no one talks about. Not a rumor, not a legend, a documented event. Deep beneath the Western Wall, inside the underground tunnels, two rabbis were given permission to conduct a private investigation. Rabbi Yehuda Getz, the chief rabbi of the Western Wall, and Rabbi Shlomo Gorin, former chief rabbi of the Israeli Defense Forces. They began their work quietly, at night, moving through ancient passages, following routes that were previously known only from medieval manuscripts. They advanced nearly 100 meters underground, and then they found something. A wall, different from the surrounding stone, newer, artificial, a sealed entrance. According to Rabbi Gorin, calculations suggested that behind this blocked passage, there could be one of the chambers of the first or second temple, possibly a storage room, possibly sacred archives, possibly something far more significant. So they began to open it, stone by stone. The reaction was immediate. The Israeli government was informed. And that same night, workers arrived with concrete. Within hours, the entrance was sealed completely. The official explanation was structural danger, a risk of collapse. But Rabbi Gorin never accepted that. Until his death in 1994, he repeated a different version, that the government feared an international crisis. Because any excavation beneath the Temple Mount, an area controlled by the Islamic Waqf, could be seen as a political act, not archaeology, and the consequences could be unpredictable. So the decision was made not to explore, not to confirm, but to close it permanently. And to this day, that concrete wall is still there. Whatever was behind it remains unknown, untouched, unanswered. Think about that. A possible chamber connected to one of the most important sites in human history, discovered and then buried again. Not because it couldn't be opened, but because no one was willing to risk what might be found. And now, we arrive at the most restricted location on Earth. Not a military base, not a classified bunker, a single piece of stone at the center of Jerusalem, covered by a golden dome. The Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, an area of about 14 hectares in the heart of the old city. And beneath it lies one of the most studied and least understood places on the planet. Since 1967, when Israel took control of East Jerusalem, excavations on the Temple Mount have been completely forbidden. An agreement between the Israeli government and the Islamic Waqf clearly states any work in this area must be approved by the religious authority, and that approval is never given. The reason is simple. Any excavation here could change history or destroy it. Some believe digging would damage Islamic holy sites. Others believe it could uncover Jewish artifacts, strengthening historical claims to the site. Either outcome could trigger conflict. Beneath the dome of the rock, there is a small cave, known as the Well of Souls, Al-Ara. Inside, a stone slab covers the floor, and according to tradition, this is where the foundation of the world begins, the point where heaven and earth are connected. Researchers who have entered the cave reported something unusual: the acoustics. Sound does not behave normally here. Echoes return with a delay, not from the walls, but as if rising from below. In 2018, Italian acoustic researcher Fabrizio Bossa measured the reverberation time inside the cave, 4.2 seconds. For a space of only about 100 cubic meters, that's unusually high. For comparison, the Sistine Chapel has around 3 seconds. With a volume thousands of times larger, his hypothesis was simple. There may be another chamber beneath the floor, resonating with the sound. But permission to investigate was denied. And this place has a history. In 1119, 9 knights established what would become the Knights Templar. They were stationed on the Temple Mount, living beneath Al-Aqsa Mosque. For 9 years, they did not leave. They did not fight. They did not defend pilgrims. They stayed underground. Then suddenly, they left Jerusalem. And within 2 decades, they became the most powerful financial organization in Europe, with banks, fleets, fortresses. So where did that wealth come from? In 1909, British aristocrat Montague Parker secretly funded an excavation beneath the Temple Mount. His team dug at night, for months, until 1911, when they were caught inside the Well of Souls itself. At the center of the site, the scandal was immediate. Parker fled the country by sea, just ahead of arrest. He never revealed what he found. So think about this. A place where excavation is forbidden, where sound behaves in ways no one fully explains, where ancient orders spent years searching in silence, where modern expeditions end in scandal. And beneath it all, something may still be there, hidden, untouched. 7 places, 7 mysteries, all real, all documented, none fully explained. A trench that went unnoticed for decades, a cave that stretches beyond what's mapped, a metal scroll pointing to lost treasure, a massive structure beneath a sacred lake, stone circles visible only from the sky, a door sealed in a single night, and a site no one is allowed to explore. So ask yourself one final question. Is the greatest secret something that was hidden, or something no one is willing to uncover?